Hi guys, this devlog is mainly about artwork. So I show some more artwork that I found at the beginning of the game to cover the food, which we're going to be picking up in order to score points. And I show some problems I had where I wasn't understanding the way colliders work properly, so I fixed an issue there. And then partway through doing my development, I just decided to completely change the artwork for the game. So I go into my reasons why I wanted to do that and then show the kind of work that I had to do in order to implement that change. Turned out to be quite a lot of work. It wasn't a simple matter of just downloading some more artwork and replacing the assets. So yeah, that is all it is in this devlog. Let's get into it. Right, I've now got a little bit more food spawning on the screen. One thing that I've noticed is that it's a little bit buggy. So that cucumber there should not be spawning over the top of the peeler. So I've got food kind of in the middle of the screen. It's slightly randomized, not too much. And then either sort of at the bottom or at the top. And it should always be in between the obstacles. It shouldn't appear over the top of them like that first bit of cucumber did. So still got some bugs. And one thing that I've noticed is really interesting is that if I oh look, I'm doing quite well. Spoke too soon. If I play this on itch, let me just find the page again. Right, on the itch page, if you have a look at the top, the grey bar, which is the utensil rack, is displaying over the top here, over the top of everything else. It's obscuring the scoring, it's obscuring the UI and the food, and it shouldn't do that. And it's weird that this is only happening on the web version. So I'm going to have to figure out why the web version is even different to what I'm building in here, because I've only got a web version. But yeah, I've updated the build that I've got on itch. I'll do that anytime I make a major change, so that hopefully people can play it. I've had a handful of people play it, which has been nice. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with what I've done today. To be quite honest, at this point, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do next other than fix the bugs. I had a very useful comment on my itch page for the game from Midnight Spire. Thank you very much for this. Who said the game could be improved if you could prevent the food pickups from interrupting the player's movement. Now, this was something that I noticed when I was playing it the other day. Sometimes when it would go into the food, there'd be almost like a kind of like a little bump, like he was bouncing off it before he would collect it. I didn't really know what it was. And they've put on there, maybe with triggers. And I've just suddenly realised I hadn't really understood in a collider what this is trigger, what that really does. So this is again an issue where I simply haven't watched many tutorials yet, or maybe I have seen this and it just hasn't really sunk into my head. But what was happening was I'm using a collider. I wasn't using the is trigger. And so if the player was to hit part of the object that didn't have the collider on it. So on this Friday, it's a little bit hard to see here because it's on a white background. But like I've just done one single circle collider here. So if he hits this part, it's not hitting the collider yet. And so I think the physics engine is kind of taking over and doing that little bump. So I've changed them all to triggers. I've only got 6 bits of food at the moment, which is good because it's going to be a lot more. There's going to be about 20. And then in the code, I've separated out on collision enter 2D with on trigger enter 2D. So now, as a result of that, if I just take off that fried egg and put the background back on, now that bump has gone. And so Toasty will just move straight into the object, but once he collides, it it disappears. I've also fixed the bug with that first item there spawning on top of the utensil. So now we've got something that's a little bit more playable. So now the food items. So each time they'll appear sort of in the middle of the screen on a slightly randomized kind of position, and then I've got things at the top or the bottom. So in each cycle they'll appear either at the top or at the bottom. So at the moment I've set this to kind of easy so that I can actually play it and test it. And one thing I would like to do is to put in another screen, like a config screen at the beginning of the game. So if I load up my title, I don't really know how to work with scenes yet. If I just save that in Unity, it's something where I haven't seen a tutorial on it, I haven't watched any, but if I play the title, this has simply got one button on there to play. So I think I'd like to do a little bit more with this. I mean, it could look a little bit nicer, but rather than just a play button, to have like a config button, and then you could do things like when I put the sound in, change the volume. And then one thing I think I could do from right now would be to have a difficulty setting, and then that would do things like control how, you know, how far away things are, how fast they're moving, how often things are placed, and not so much how often, but kind of how random it all is. So yeah, so that's something that I do need to work on. Another thing that I'm working on at the moment is my obstacle manager and topping manager are basically doing the same thing. So I'm trying to abstract that out into a class called a prefab spawner. I haven't really written it yet. I've just started work on it, and I'm just going to try to have it so that each one of these can just contain a spawner for, so for the obstacle one, a spawner for the top row of objects, and a spawner from the bottom row of objects there, and the same for the topping manager. So it should make these classes much smaller, much cleaner, and reduce a lot of the duplication. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. Today I'm working on the front end, the UI in particular. I'm still trying to wrestle with the canvas, and what I want to do is kind of build an options menu. So I've got something kind of working at the moment. So you can press play to go onto the main game, and if I press this button now, obviously I haven't really put anything behind this, but I've got something that kind of works. But I'm not particularly happy with how it looks. I mean, it's all right. But I did find this amazing looking GUI on Itch. So this is by a creator called Penzilla, and I'm pretty sure I have saved some of her stuff to some collections before. And as I started to look through this, I thought, you know, this looks really amazing, but I would have to rework quite a bit of the game, because I'd need to change the panels that I've got. You know, the heart system here, obviously that looks kind of better than what I have at the moment. But then I noticed the same creator has got kitchen stuff. Oh my god, look at this. And this is like $2 for all of these things. And she's got in here, yeah, 16 utensils, some plates, pots and stuff, and loads of other stuff. And she's got food icons to go with it. So again, it's very cheap. It's only $8. Now, I don't know how many of these would really fit in with the toast theme, but it doesn't really matter. But I'm kind of asking myself the question, do I switch or not? So at this point, in order to do the artwork for this, you know, I've had to basically create all the prefabs, which means I've got to fiddle around with the sprites, I've got to do the colliders, I would have to do all of this stuff again. And of course, this is something where I'm learning the difference between working with something like Unity and, you know, Monogame or something else. You know, building a game in Unity is very much a visual thing. If I create a prefab for this, it's not just a simple thing of swapping out a sprite, but then it wouldn't be in any other kind of engine either. So yeah, I'm just kind of asking myself the question, do I want to change it all? Does it really matter what the game looks like? I have to keep reminding myself it's just my first game. It's going to be a pile of shit and it doesn't really matter. But at the same time, this artwork is so gorgeous that I kind of just want to use it. And yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and do it. I know it's going to take some time to redo it all, but then it's also good practice for me. And I just think it would be nicer to have a game that looks better. I mean, at the moment it's all right, but it's not really. It's kind of a bit shit. You know, this artwork that I found, which was on Vecteezy, it's not game art. It was just general vector art, probably more like something that should be used as clip art, perhaps on like a brochure or flyer or something. It's not really designed for a game. I think my toast image works out well, but for the rest of the stuff, you know, it's okay. Again, it's okay. But another problem I have with the food is that I've got several different authors here, creators, artists rather, and so sometimes the art style is a little bit different. Whereas again, if I go with one single creator who's created the art, the artwork for all three, it's going to be consistent. And I think the whole lot is going to look better. So I know this is going to take me some time to go through all this, but I think it's worth it. So I'm going to go ahead and download this pack, which is free, and then I'm going to buy these two, and then I'm going to basically start over and try not to kill my game in the process. I have spent the last 7 hours working with artwork and completely replacing everything in this game. So these are all my new prefabs for the obstacles. I've also completely reworked the background. The only thing that is still there is the kitchen tiles and Toasty himself. And for the food, I've just added a handful. Where are they? Just a handful for now, but I've got a big selection to choose from. So this pack that I downloaded, it's got a lot of good stuff here. There's something like 160 different icons, so many varieties. So originally I was going to do it as all kind of toast toppings, but obviously this changes that, but it's fine. It can just be a game where you pick up food. Now some of them, like the fruits and vegetables, are probably not quite as high quality as the others, but this still, I've got like well over 100 icons. So if I show you how the game looks now, I've also completely reworked the UI. I have changed literally everything. So yeah, you've now got a countertop, which kind of hopefully looks like a countertop, a rail, which looks like a rail, I hope. And now all of the various kinds of icons, all of the graphics, because it's from the same artist, it looks more consistent. Even the hearts on the UI, I've changed that. I've changed the positioning of it all, because it just wasn't looking good sitting on top of the other stuff. So I've put it over there, which I think looks a little bit better. I've put Toasty on one of the mugs down there. It's still going to need some work. Obviously, I might make the food slightly bigger. I'm not sure. I'm probably going to change around. What was I going to say? Like change the distance between things, but I'm probably going to do that via the difficulty settings. So like the options menu that I did. What have I just clicked on? Oh, I accidentally just loaded up my Visual Studio Code there. Am I still playing? Yes. Right. So yeah, so that's basically what I've been working on today, just completely overhauling the graphics. It's been a lot of work, but I think it's worth it. And what I'm quite excited about here is having so many different food types. This has given me some ideas of ways in which I could expand the game a bit, because at the moment it's just literally you just collect stuff, you score 10 points, you just get a score. I can put in like a high score system perhaps, but that's not terribly exciting. What I could do is I could add things like collections. So like, I don't know if you've ever played like Stardew Valley, or there's many games that have collections, and the idea is you're trying to collect all the different food types of a particular group. And the way, let's let myself die there, the way these asset packs are organized, you've got like all of like the cakes and desserts in one section, you've got different kind of like fast foods or different sort of dishes, you've got, what have we got here? I think I've loaded the same one. I've got more desserts here, obviously fruits and vegetables. There's more actually. What else have I got here? If I just close that, oh, it's a little bit small, you can't really see them, but we've got some, where are they, like meats and stuff. There's loads, like absolutely loads of stuff. So, oh, that's the meat one. Yeah, I'm really pleased with how it looks now. I think it looks a lot better than it did before, so I'm glad I went to that effort. I think in future games it's worth, how am I trying to word this? When I first started this, I thought to myself, it's just a practice game, it doesn't matter. And the problem is, it did matter. It was bothering me that it just kind of looks shit. Just because it's my first game and it's just kind of like a practice game, I still want it to look decent. I still want to feel like I would enjoy playing it. And when it just looked like a pile of shit, I didn't like it. So yeah, this is kind of a lesson learned for me, is that it's going to be important to me to have at least decent looking artwork. You know, use assets but done by a proper artist. You know, pay a few quid and get it looking good. So obviously there's still no sound, but I'm going to have the same issue there. I'm going to want some sounds that kind of seem cohesive, because that's another problem I had in Orbarella, where I was using lots of different sounds from all sorts of different artists, and as a result it's all a little bit disjointed. So I'm glad I've got better artwork now. Is that working? Yeah. But yeah, so there's still a lot more to do, but I'm pleased with the graphic overhaul. In my last devlog, I mentioned a bug that I had noticed where the rendering wasn't quite displaying correctly on the itch version of the game. So the rail that I had, which at the time was just the black bar, was actually obscuring the obstacles that I had on the screen. So if I put something on here, if I just put an obstacle, it should go on the top of the rail. So it's supposed to be looking like it's hanging from the rail. Now, I was under the impression, and this was incorrect, that the way that you have things in your hierarchy is what determines the order, but it isn't. So, for example, the problem I was having was with this background. So this is just an empty object, this background, and I noticed a bug today where a couple of items from my background settings here were not displaying. So the rail wasn't displaying and the tiles weren't displaying, and it comes down to two different things. So I thought that the order in which they appear here makes a difference. So I thought that if I put, say, tile granite up here, that the counter would appear on top of it, but it doesn't. It makes no difference whatsoever. There's only two things which determine the rendering order in Unity. So one of them is the actual sorting layer of the sprites. So each one of these has the same layer. They're all on the background layer. Whereas something like the obstacle, which I've just placed on there, let's bring that back, that is on the obstacles layer, and I've got another layer for the food. Now if I just take this out, I'm going to show you a neat little trick that I found, because the second thing that determines how they appear, so I guess there's three things. So within the sorting layer, you've got an order within that layer. So what I could do is I could go through each one of my background items and I could give it a number. The problem with that, of course, is that if I wanted to then add some more items later on and that changed the ordering, I've got to go through and reorder everything and manually fiddle with this. But there's another way to do it, and that is using the Z position within the transform. So the Z position is how far it is to or from the camera. Now, we don't tend to think about this in a 2D game, but Unity is not really a 2D engine, it's a 3D engine. And this was something that was actually a bit of a barrier to me when I was first considering what engine to use. I didn't like the idea that I was working with a 3D engine, but it turns out this is really useful. So over here I've got a button which says 2D. If I click that and then see my game in 3D, what I have done is I have visually laid out all the items simply by dragging things in the editor here, and this just makes it so easy for me to visualize. So in this case, I want my rail to be appearing in front of the splashback, not over here behind it. So if I was to just move that around, zoom out a bit, if I put the rail over there, I'm not going to see that. So if I click on my game, it's not there. You can't see the rail anymore. In fact, I don't even need to do that. I can just go over to the game view and you can see that it's gone. And the same thing with the counter. If I was to go and put my counter behind the splashback, I won't see it. And this is what I had. I was thinking, where's my counter gone? And I don't know how it got messed up, but using this little trick, it makes it so that you can just do things visually. And this, for me, is just something that really helps. It helps me to be able to visually you know, see what I'm doing. And in this case, I want my little tiles, you can hardly see them, this little line here, I want them appearing over the top of the brown wooden countertop. And now it's all working. So yeah, I'm just really pleased with this neat little trick that I found, and I am no longer beating up Unity for being just a 3D engine, because it's actually really useful. That is it for this devlog. As before, if you do want to try out the game, you can just come over to the itch page and play it directly in here. The link to that will be in the video description. All right, thanks very much for watching, guys. Speak to you next time.